this is not a show that talks about sex. And so in terms of all of us going in as partners, it didn't seem to work overall as a partnership.
Transitioning to something interesting, okay? We've covered the Joe Budden situation, Joe Budden Network, kind of in detail throughout the year or so. I was going to say years, like we've been in this like super years, but we really haven't. We've been in like a year and a half, something like that.
Yeah.
Right. But we've seen and covered the growth of it. We've seen the breakup and how he was still making a network. But the funny thing is, I was going on his channel and I realized that he had two female podcasts. He had the Karen Civil one, and he had the Mandii, and I think her name is Bridget, podcast as well. And I knew Karen Civil hasn't been podcasting for a while, but I didn't see the other ladies for a minute, for about 3 months. And I'm like, yo, what happened? Because I was expecting, if anything was to go wrong, right? If anything, it would probably happen after the Rory and Mal situation. Like, okay, right. That's pretty much. And then there was a complaint with one of the female co-hosts on this particular podcast that we're going to be talking about, and that kind of like talked about the Joe Budden Network in a negative way. And then I thought, okay, this got to be done. But actually, they left pretty much 3 months ago, and we found out why. So we're going to talk about it.
What works for Joe does not work for two women newly into this space, and right. Joe doesn't like advertising dollars. And the way in which we look at CPMs and ad space and all those things, yeah. Joe's model doesn't work for maybe the newcomer. Joe's model doesn't work for someone who maybe doesn't have a built-in audience. Right. Right. And we're not the Love and Hip Hop audience. We're not the R&B songstress. This is not a show that talks about sex. And so in terms of all of us going in as partners, it didn't seem to work overall as a partnership. And to be honest, the fact that we were able to leave with everything that we built.
So this podcast was called, or it still is called, they didn't finish. See, the thing is, right? And I thought, first off, gotta applaud. Let me applaud them. It's funny, in this interview, the guy who was hosting it, I think it's Adam 21 or something like that, but Adam, right? He was like, yo, you did the only lick. You got away with everything. They're like, what are you talking about? Right. And this is mastery of leverage. You get on a network, you leverage the audience that you didn't have, right? You get on their particular platform, you get on their YouTube page that has 918 subscribers at this moment. You create a buzz, you create great content in order to leverage the audience. And then you realize some things may not be adding up as far as money-wise when it comes to ads. You fill your contract up, you fulfill that, and then you leave with all that you have created. Your IP, your content is still up there. So, you'll still be getting people coming in who do search for it. But yet you can now go to different brands and corporations in order to get those AdSense that you didn't have in this particular agreement. I think that is the super blueprint for anybody who gets on a network. That is like, here's a brand new podcast. Yes, let's jump on a network. You could give me eyes. You could give me exposure. Great. Now, I do love that they said they notice, in which, I don't know if we've gone over it, Joe Budden does not do ads for his podcast.
Yeah.
Right. Which is very interesting because majority of podcasters, that the way they make money from it is ads. That's one way. There's multiple ways. Affiliate marketing. We talked about it when we were breaking down the I Am Athlete, the 7 ways of how you can monetize a podcast, right? But there are ad placement that, depending on your CPM, which can bring you a good amount of money, depending on your downloads. And if Joe Budden didn't believe in ads, that means that would pretty much trickle down to the whole network. Which is interesting, because I'm like, then what is, besides the exposure, or maybe it was only the exposure. Look, we're cool. I want to get you out there. Like, come on my network. I've been doing this for years. It makes sense.
Right.
But I like how they identified this is not long term. We love you. Everybody, like, met in equal grounds. Like, you know what? This isn't working, but I want you to succeed. I want you to have everything. Now, if it was shiesty, Joe could have kept the IP. Joe could have kept certain things. I think this is really dope, but it's very rare at the same time. I don't know. What's your thoughts?
It's interesting, and I definitely want to approach it from a business standpoint. But let me ask you this first. So for those who are listening, and let's say they take that approach of, you take your podcast on a network, and then you make a move and you take your IP with you. Is there a way to transfer the videos that, let's say, were updated or uploaded to the Nicky and Moose YouTube page for this new podcast that we brought on? Can that podcast take their videos off of our YouTube and take them with them somewhere else? Or how does that work?
You could take the videos down if they wanted to. Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
if they wanted to, it makes sense. Because, I mean, what I believe, they do get, of course, we all know, they do get YouTube money. So they probably get a percentage based off the views on their YouTube, right? Because you could pretty much see what each video brings in. So maybe they have an arrangement to where, hey, if you leave the network, you have 2 options. And this is assuming, I'm not saying this is what happened. You could leave it and you'll still get eyes, you'll still get exposure. Or maybe Joe was really dope and said, hey, these particular ones, I'm not adding any more, but these particular ones, you can still get a percentage from.
Interesting. Yeah, because the part that stuck out to me, and you spoke to it briefly as well, was them recognizing that Joe's business model doesn't necessarily align with how they see podcasting or how they see the business world. So it's like, we believe in using analytics to drive maybe exposure to our podcast, or we believe that one of the most valid revenue streams is ads. Now, the company, the platform, even the business partners that I'm currently working with may not believe in that, and possibly for good reason. I think the thing what we need to highlight is the discipline and the awareness to say, this is great, but it has a expiration date to it. Oh, this is a great opportunity, but it's not my forever ticket to success or to growth. So I'm a fan of tradition. I think tradition is a way to show that you're someone who's grounded in principle and value, and you're someone of integrity. So tradition is great. But when tradition is outdated, or the way your tradition sets you up, you become outdated as the economy or the industry around you changes, you look like you're running a broken model to some, right? Again, depending on who you ask. So I think the credit here is to them for noticing that they have another level to go to, or they have something else that they're striving for. So it makes for them to make the adjustment, but definitely something that I would like people to put in their ear. And if you're listening to this and, you're someone who likes to stand on, again, character, integrity, longevity, all of these things, they are great. My question to you is, how are you adding principles or something in there so that your tradition is never outdated?
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I think we got to think about for sure.
That's good. I think, one thing I do hope people could also take away from this is, how do you continue to have full control of your IP? Mm-hmm. That, and I'm be honest about ours, we have full control, right? We have absolute full control. And I appreciate that. But looking at how other people do networks, and this is for anybody, whether it's from a podcasting standpoint, whether it's from any type of media where it's like you get on Netflix, you do ABC Network, any type of media content. How much control do you have? And are you willing to give it up for a level of exposure, or a percentage or amount of money? Like, these are things that, as much as we, especially for content creators or anybody who may not believe they're content creators, but they make content. Sorry to tell you, you're a content creator, okay? Sorry. I know. You didn't think you were, but you are, right? I think we get so intrigued and caught up in, oh my God, they're interested in our content. I was doing this anyways, right? And that's a lot of podcasts. I created a podcast anyways. You actually want me on the network, and you actually have some high-end podcasts, or you yourself has numbers in itself, and I can get more downloads, I could get more views, I could get more people looking at my videos from a YouTube standpoint and make more money on that way. I'm just overall exposed, whether from an impact way or a monetization way. You get very caught up in that. Very. And you can lose sight of your ownership if you don't play it right. If you get so blinded by the stardom of a network, the stardom of maybe who's in the network, the stardom of the possibilities, the possible opportunities, not even the guaranteed opportunities, the possible opportunities of these things. Like, you have to keep, this is why it's important to understand what is the goal of the overall content. What is the major goal? Because maybe the major goal wasn't to be co-signed by a network or to get a deal here, that like there may be a bigger picture. And this is just part of the path. If it's part of the path, please, whatever you can do, try to retain, try to keep your ownership as much as you can, or even within the deal, at a certain point, you grab the ownership back. We've seen it, and we talked about it with music deals, where, okay, you have the masters now, but when this deal is over, you give me back my masters. Having the same, because there's so much value and importance in content and in an audience. Okay? I was going over the old Rihanna stuff that we talked about before, and how people will pay, like brands and corporations will pay for your audience, for your loyal fans. No matter if it's 500 or 100,000. People will pay because they know you say something, they're probably going to convert. So the audience is important, but as well as the content is important, because content is king in this day and age. Period. So we have to stay in control of both somehow, some way. Get smart with it. Please make sure there's some, if you are in those certain kind of deals, there's some lawyers that are involved. Even though I hate legal, I fully respect the situations that they protect us from.
100%.
But look, shout out to See the Thing Is podcast and what they did and what they're continuing to do, because this is the model for anybody who's thinking about jumping on a network of some sort or is on a network. This is like you're opening your eyes of, okay, what is the good part and what doesn't fit our needs into true growth from a monetization standpoint as well. So shout out to them.
Yeah.